Welcome to ProCreCon. My name is Don Allen III, and today we're going to learn how to make a photograph like this. So I have this logo here that I made, and most important thing is it's a transparent logo, meaning if I take away the background layer here, you see that there is nothing behind this logo. All the edges are just transparent. This is going to help make the process simpler. So to center this piece, I'm going to select all by hitting Command A and going to the alignment tools, and now our logo is placed right back in the center where we want it. Now it's actually quite simple in Photoshop, CS6, or Creative Cloud to do this. I made a duplicate of the layer here, but what we're going to do is hold Command and click on the layer, and you're going to see very quickly, I'm going to zoom in, you get all these dotted lines. This is making a selection, so you're selecting all of the outlines. And then you can right click on the layer and choose New 3D Extrusion from Select Layer. Can't speak today. There we go. Click it and look at that. Almost instantly we have a 3D logo, but it's not that cool yet. So I'm going to hit Command D to deselect, and we're going to look around this logo, kind of just taking a look at what we want to do with it. Oops, I went back too far. Let's do that again. Go right click and do New 3D Extrusion from Selected Layer, and boom, Photoshop does that. Hit Command D and we are deselected, looking great. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the background, so I have this white background so I can see the shadow that it's casting a little bit better, and I don't want to zoom in so much, so I'm going to go to the actual pixels. Getting some kind of weird edges going on here. Okay. So in your 3D layer, you have a lot of choices to kind of edit. You can affect the environment, you can make it more reflective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the reflectivity of the environment. As you see, as I turn it up, you can see that the environment is going to reflect this. You can also turn up how rough the environment is so that the light kind of scatters a bit. So I'm going to turn up the roughness just a little bit. Nothing really ridiculous, and you won't really notice too much difference right now because we're not in a rendered mode. We are in like this preview mode, so it's going to look kind of ugly edges and not that sharp, only because it's not rendered yet. It's going to take a little bit of time to render. Now I'm going to go through and change different aspects of the logo, like the shine. So this is how shiny it is. You can also change how much reflection it is. This will be very good for the inside parts of it. If you want the inside of the logo to reflect the other side, you got to do that by selecting the part that it is responsible for and increasing the reflection. So I'm just going to increase the reflection for a lot of it. I really want this to look like a pretty shiny, fancy looking logo. And you can change the roughness on different areas to kind of give it that different look. Refraction allows it to be transparent as a 3D object so that you can see past the layers. And so, you know, just playing around, making it look nice. This one, if you select all the layers like this, you can do the extrusion depth by changing this. And this one's pretty apparent. This is making it, you know, thicker into the 3D space, zooming into that Z axis or not. You can also do lots of other things, like you can do like warps. So I can do a twist on the back end, which does not seem to show up. A little curious about that. You can do extrusion depth, of course, which I like this one a lot. Maybe let's do something like that. It looks pretty cool. Taper. Oh wow, that's a lot. Okay, so taper kind of, if you can see, it like pushes the edges together a little bit closer. You know, that's a thing. I don't really like it too much, so I'm probably not going to use it. So I'm just gonna go back to 100%. And then use also like these kind of warps. You can bend it in different directions. This is kind of cool. Look at that. So this kind of gives you this effect of like the whole object is rotated. And this is the bend feature. You can also do shear. And this will kind of give you this effect. Pretty nice. Without having to rotate it all. Looks pretty cool. I like the bend a little bit. And let's kind of just turn it a little bit. Where are we going? That looks kind of cool there, but it actually kind of takes away from his logo, so I'm probably gonna just not leave it. Again, I just want to show you those so that you know that you can change a lot of different features about the the sides. So here you can choose just specific sides, and I'm going to choose the front and back and change the angle, the inflate angle. Again, you won't really notice too much change because we haven't rendered anything yet, unfortunately. But you will soon see those changes. The last thing we want to do is if you click onto your 3D object, you see you have this plane. This thing up here is called your infinite light. It's going to be made by default, and it's where the light is cast from. And you can change the angle and the softness and the intensity of the light. So if you look around, maybe I want the light to kind of come in right here. And the reason why is I really want to push the 3D. So if we put a light source around here, let's see, kind of moving it around, we'll be able to, the shadows are more apparent. I really like how you can see the top of the M is casting a shadow here, part of the M is casting a shadow on the J. It looks great. So you can go to your infinite light because you selected it, and you can make the softness of the shadows, increase it. And again, it's not going to look very nice here because we are in this preview state. And you can also change the intensity of the light, so that's like 600% or so. Now this logo looks kind of pink. I'm going to keep it at 100% because Photoshop's just really good at editing colors. I just want to get the 3D look here. Okay. You can also, if you are interested, grab your 3D object by its axes, by grabbing the coordinates, and let's get out of the 3D light. Let's go back to our object, and you can move it up or down or side to side by grabbing or rotating. So like if you go here, you can rotate around this axis, and you can see the reflection is still dealing with that. It can still reflect on the surface. I'm going to go back. You can also grab just the arrows and move it up if you want it to be floating. In this case, I actually do want it to be floating, which is why I'm doing this. I'm going to do it right about here, and that gives us a pretty cool look. Or maybe something short right there. And then last, I'm going to go back to the environment. I'm going to make it a little bit rougher on the bottom. And once you're happy with it, there's this button right here, and this is the render. So I'm going to click render, and we're going to be right back because it does take a little bit of time working in 3D, especially in Photoshop. So here we go. Hit render, and we'll be right back. So this animation is not rendered completely yet. It is still rendering. It does take a while. And I only stopped to interrupt because I want to say that adding shadows and adding reflections and softening shadows does increase the amount of time that it's going to take to render. What's nice is it increases the amount of realism with any of your three-dimensional edits, but consequently, it is going to take a lot longer to render. So I'm going to let it keep rendering out, and we'll be right back. Yay, it is done. Now that took a long time, but we are back. And we have a logo that is now pretty much ready to be photoshopped. So this is what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to go into layers and just click out. And I'm going to zoom a little bit farther out to kind of see what we're working with. So this looks great. If anything, you could say you're already done. But that's not how I roll. I like to take it to the next step. And to do that, well, let's first of all play around with the colors. So maybe we want the background to be a different color. This is the same color as that. That doesn't look good. Let's kind of just move it around. This is black. And then we don't really see the shadows, of course. We could do a lighter color. How about this? We'll leave it white for now. And I'm going to create a new layer called the color balance layer. Boom, boom. And this affects the shadows, midtones, and highlights of your image. Now realize that every picture you ever take usually has shadows, midtones, and highlights, unless it's a solid color. So I like to first play with the shadows. Wow, already a completely different effect, and we're just sliding this just a few angles to the side. So again, with this kind of area, I want you to be creative and try out your own style and see what works best for you. I'm going to play around with these colors for a little bit, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I have the colors selected to something I like. Now I'm going to play around with the background a little bit more. So right now I have the color picker selected. I'm actually just clicking through different shadows that I see on the picture to kind of decide if that's the direction I want to go in. This one looks pretty nice. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to save this color by copying this code and hit OK. And I'm actually going to maybe play with the gradients instead. Oh wow, so even this looks really nice. Now we're going to go here and we're going to change this to that code that we just copied, and we're going to paste it right here. Then we get that purple color. Now you can move these around, and what this is doing is it's forming a gradient. And gradients basically take two colors and they soften them, they soften the transition between them. Now you can change the scale, which really softens the transition. As you can see, this is like no scale, so it's very quick. It jumps from this color to this color, which is those same two colors. Or you can really soften the scale, which kind of creates that nice flow. Now this is a linear gradient. You can also do radial, which as you can see has this soft inside circle kind of shape, and it fans out. I'm really digging this. I probably am going to use that, but just to show you other ones, we have radial, oops. We also have angle, has this kind of a trippy effect. It's like a wheel. We also have reflected, and then we have diamond. Wow, actually diamond looks pretty great here. And you can also change the angle. So this is, let's do 0 degrees, so it kind of looks like it just rotated 90. You can do 45 and kind of get this crisscross effect. You can do 90 and just go straight up and down. I actually really dig that a lot. Let me compare it with the radial. I'm stuck. I don't know which one I like more. I usually don't use diamond, but you know, this time I'm going to use diamond. And let's go ahead and play with the other color here. So right now it's this blue. Just in case we want to use it, I'm going to copy that, but I'm going to actually try different colors just to play around. So that's like a deeper blue color. Let's play with the purple. Ew, purple does not look good back there. That looks pretty good. That looks really good actually. So that's a white color. And because we already have the color balance filter on, it's actually affecting some of the hues in the white already, which is why we get this kind of nice pink and maybe even peach orange color in the middle. Once you're happy with it, go ahead and hit OK. So I'm actually super stoked with the way this is looking. You could stop here and say I'm done, or you can take it to the next level. And the next level would be to add texture. Because right now, this is perfectly smooth. But let's say we want DJ Midnight's logo to be made of a certain material. In this case, I want it to be made of, well, some kind of texture. So I'm going to go to Google Images and look up a texture, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I found 3 different textures that I think can work. One thing you need to note for your textures, make sure they're very large. You know, large images, because if you have a small texture and you're scaling it up, you're going to lose a lot of quality and you're going to defeat the purpose of getting a texture in the first place. We're trying to add detail and character to our 3D object. Okay, so I'm going to hide all 3 of these and kind of look around at what we want to add texture to. In this case, I want it to actually be just the DJ Midnight logo and not the background for now. And to do that, we can go to our 3D layer and hold Command and click on the layer icon. And as you can see, it's highlighting everything that we want to impact. Then I'm going to open up one of the textures that I'm feeling is cool or workable. I'm going to do this blue one. And with this layer selected, I'm going to hit Command J. And what that did right now is it made a cutout. It made a cutout exactly of what the shape we just selected, which is very helpful. Next, I'm going to grab an eraser brush tool that's really soft on the edges and kind of eliminate these hard edges by kind of just fanning it out like that. And getting rid of it here, I don't really want the texture on the shadow over there, and I don't want on the shadow over here. So this looks terrible because it almost looks like our whole 3D image is flattened, and what's the point of this? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to select the layer and then choose a blend mode. Now there's lots of different options, and I think I'm probably going to go with overlay, and already we get a lot more detail into our shot. But just to be sure, I'm going to try like screen. Nope, looks horrible. Let's try multiply. Looks okay, maybe a little too dark. Try darken. No. So I'm going to stick with overlay. Now if you want to customize this texture to kind of remove and make certain elements of it stand out more than others, what you can do is with that layer selected, you can go to image adjustments and go to, where is it? Well, you could do any of these, but let's do curves. And this is the RGB curve. The lower corner here represents like dark light, so you can increase the darks, and the lower you go over here is like increasing the dark end. So if you change the shape of this dramatically, you can affect your texture. So this kind of brings out a lot of the darker details, which I do not want. So I'm going to bring it up pretty high up here. I just want kind of those sharp cracks to kind of give it a little bit of character. Let's kind of up this. There we go. Something like that works for me, and I'm going to hit OK. Again, I don't like the texture on the ground, so I'm going to get my eraser brush tool, and I'm going to just select an area like this, and I'm going to go through with the eraser brush tool and just erase that texture. I don't really want that stuff down there. Okay, hit Command D. So look at that. We have a lot more detail in this shot now. You know, it looks like we have these kind of stone or almost cement characteristics with our logo. We're going to now take it to the next level again and add some more textures. So I'm going to place this over it, and just like before, you can select it and hit Command J, and I will make a cutout from your selection. And then with it selected, you can choose a different blending mode, so do overlay, or you can do maybe screen with this one. That looks terrible. Lighten. Not feeling any of these. Really not feeling them. So actually I'm going to erase that layer, and maybe what we'll do is maybe we'll decide to add some characteristic to the background. Now unfortunately, as you can see, these pictures are not large enough to cover this entire canvas, which is a little bit of a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pretend like it didn't happen. And I'm going to soften the edges of this rectangle by going through and erasing it. And I'm going to basically have this texture only apply to the background in the middle of the frame. That way I don't have to scale it up. I'm also going to turn it upside down. I don't know why. It just feels better that way. I'm going to move this underneath our 3D text layer so that it's only in the background. And already it's doing pretty well, but I'm going to go ahead and change its blending modes to screen, or maybe I'm going to change it to difference. And what I'm going to do is basically just play around and see what kind of effect works the best for me. Now, one thing you should not forget is that sometimes it looks a little too intense around the edges, and realize that with all these blending modes, once you're done choosing one that has the right level of contrast and detail, you can go here and choose the opacity and drop it down so that it's only subtle in the background. Like something like this, it adds a little bit of character into the background, but it doesn't take away. And that's what I wanted to kind of keep it at. Like, it's a nice little texture. Okay, moving back out. What else do we want to add? Lights. Let's add lasers. Lots of lasers. It says DJ Midnight. He works at a lot of nightclubs. I say lasers because I've seen lasers at his nightclub events. So here's what we're going to do. Best way to make a laser is you can grab a line tool and grab a really thin line, and we're going to make it white. And just to see right here, this is my default. That's way too thick, actually. So I'm going to change the weight, which is kind of the thickness of the stroke, to something less. So let me do something like 10. Actually, that's still too thick. Let's do 8. Okay, that's going to work perfectly for me. And I'm going to just do some laser light show kind of things. So you can kind of just, I'm going to grab this rulers and put this at the very center of the frame. Now, if your rulers do not show up by default, you have to go to Window, where is it? Rulers. I don't see it at all. Oh no, View, Rulers. There we go. And then you'll see these rulers, and if you grab them, you can basically create these anchor points. And this is nice because I can snap things to them and kind of just draw stuff with a little bit more ease. And I'm just going to kind of draw these lasers in random spots. I'm also going to change the width to something smaller a couple of times. Again, just starting from that top part. We might end up using this behind his name instead, because as I'm looking at it, it might actually look cooler that way. So actually, let's go ahead and take this whole layer and move it down. And then I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees by grabbing the corners. Okay, and we're going to move it all the way back up. Great, hit OK. And we're going to put this behind our text layer. A lot of it. There we go. How are we doing? Okay, this actually looks pretty cool. Now to give this laser effect, I'm going to hide my laser guidelines there. But to give this layer our laser effect, you're going to select it and you're going to go to an option on it. So you're going to double click on the layer and it's going to go to lots of options here. These are the blending styles. And we're going to turn on something called outer glow. Now if you see, it kind of just made a little glow right here. That's great. We're going to increase the size of that glow. And we're going to increase or decrease the spread. So that's a lot more powerful laser. I just want to decrease the spread a lot. So it's just around the edges. And you can affect the range. And this is going to kind of just soften the amount of the spread. And what you get right here is this is a laser glowing effect now. And it looks pretty cool. We're also going to change our blending modes of the entire layer to one that's called overlay. And that's going to kind of give it a different quality of character as it passes through different kind of colors and textures. I'm also going to duplicate this layer. And because it's larger like this, I can move it around. Oops. Just want to move around the second laser layer. Okay. So what you're seeing right now is I keep trying to grab a laser and it keeps moving the background. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to select the layer that keeps moving and choose the lock layer. And now it's not going to move when I click on it. But other stuff is going to move because I haven't done lock layers on them. Okay, let's grab our lasers. We made a duplicate. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lock down all these layers because they're all overlapping each other and it's going to keep moving them. Let's see, does this work now? Yeah, okay, so we have another laser, so just go ahead. I'm going to move it around, something like over here. Command J is the quick shortcut for copy. I'm going to move something over here. That's looking really cool, at least in my view. Here's another thing you can do with this effect. So we have our DJ Midnight logo. It looks pretty cool, but if we want to add a little bit more character to it, we can, and very easily by I'm going to unhide the original layer and put it on top here. This was the logo unedited and un-3Dified, if you will. And I'm going to basically align it to where it should be on the very front face of the 3D text. I'm going to turn it off and on real quick to see if it's lined up nicely. Okay, it is. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose the blending modes of this, and I'm going to make it so it has no fill. And what that's going to do in a minute when I add other layers, it looks like it's invisible because there's no fill anymore. You don't see it. But what we can do with this is add a stroke, and the stroke will exist even though it is not there, even though the fill is not there. It remembers the shape. I'm going to change the stroke to inside. Then I'm going to increase the size just a little bit. And then I'm going to change the color to white. Then I'm hit OK. I'm going to decrease the size a little bit. Something right around there. Then I'm going to change the blend mode from normal to overlay. And what this did is it kind of, at least in my eyes, it gives the edges a little bit more edge. So here's with it, here's without it. And if you think it's too much, that's possible. We can always just reduce the opacity of the layer so that it's not as present. But I just want to give the edges a little bit more sharpness. And you can just change the size of the effect if you feel so necessary to do so. Okay, and hit OK. Now this looks pretty cool. What else can we add? There's so much. Here's one of them. Let's add a light in front of it. So see how bright this background is of the white? Now in real life, if this light was that bright, it would actually affect the way that we see the front of this, because light kind of bends around objects. So what I'm going to do to kind of create that effect is I'm going to grab this white brush and I'm going to go to the very front top layer and I'm going to make sure it's a very soft white brush. I'm just going to tap it a couple times. And what this is going to do, let me turn up the opacity a lot, is it's going to look like light is leaking from the background and entering into our shot. And the effect that this achieves is quite remarkable. It basically makes it look like we're looking at a real light, and it's really affecting how bright it is in the front. Again, I just changed the opacity a little bit right there just so I can have a softer brush for ambient light, but the most amount of light was right there in the white. So I should just basically go through and turn up the brightness on any part that has white that is leaking through the background, and essentially just paint over the layer. That actually doesn't look good over there. I'm going to take that one off. This one looks great. We'll leave that. It looks really like a powerful lights coming through. And that's actually what effect I wanted to achieve. And again, you can also go to the layer behind all that stuff, all of that goodness, create a new layer and create a large brush, and just again put that light out there. And that will just further sell the effect that this is a bright light in the background. And hit OK. Go to fit screen or zoom out. I just want to take a look at what this is looking like. I think it's looking pretty cool. Okay. Looking good, looking good. I might want to add another layer adjustment to the colors. So I'm going to add a vibrance layer on top of everything. And with the vibrance layer selected, I'm going to just either decrease the vibrance, which kind of gives this pale look, which I hate, or you can increase the vibrance so it's a lot more rich, a lot more saturated. That's too saturated. Let's bring it down. Whoa, it actually looks kind of cool in black and white. And like before, with this effect, you can really just play around with the colors until it's something that is unique and it is something that is yours and that you're proud of. So that's pretty much the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't seen the other ones, I have 3 other tutorials that teach you the basics of Premiere or really cool animation in After Effects, or just recently a goofy photo of my friend Yoel. So if you want to check out those things, go to ProCreWCon. Go to the link in the description. It's donallen3rd.com/ProCreWCon. Again, thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.